And good evening, everyone. It's Sunday night, the 28th of November. Feeling fat and happy after a really great Thanksgiving holiday. Hope all of you are feeling the same way tonight. This is episode 17 of The Ghosts of Bacon. And I decided with episode 17, we'd talk about the 17th Earl of Oxford. That's right, Edward deVere. And so, for all of the Oxfordians out there, this episode is called Sorry It Wasn't deVere. And so, going to quickly look at our feed. And Ray, you were early on. Thank you for that. Happy Hanukkah for the next 8 days. Yes, to everyone else as well. And good evening, Penn. I'm glad you could join us. All right, so I see our live feed is kind of filling up here. And before I get started with the little dog and pony show, there are a couple of things I wanted to start to incorporate into the show. This week, we had some really great posts from our members of our Ghosts of Bacon page. And so what I wanted to do is kind of give a few shout outs here. And let me just go ahead and share the screen. And what I'll end up doing here is just kind of show you what's been going on in the Ghosts of Bacon Facebook group. And so let's take a look here. And William Russell, okay, this was a really cool post that William did, one of our group members, where he decided to take a look at some angles, and we found some familiar numbers and angles on the Drake map that Jason and I had discussed a couple of weeks ago. And no surprise, here's a winner chicken dinner from Daniel Spino. Thanks for posting this one, Daniel. This is really cool. Sparked a really great discussion here. Kurt Wood joined in and jumped in on the talk. And so really enjoying all of these posts. Jason, again, with the Drake map, some of his newest findings, you can find them there on the Ghosts of Bacon Facebook group. Really cool stuff, gang. Thanks for joining and posting those things. And that's really what it's all about. You know, when I started this group, started the podcast, it was all about just kind of sharing information. And now other people are jumping in and sharing their findings based upon some of the things that I discovered by studying the plaque on the funerary monument of William Shakespeare, and what I disclosed in my book about some of the findings there, and the nature of Bacon's true identity. And that's really what this is all about. And so, hello, everyone. I see a lot of people still popping in. Very cool. Linda, hi from Nova Scotia. Well, hello from Northern New York. We're basically in the same parallel here. Jason, glad you can make it. All right. So hopefully you guys were here for me giving you all a shout out here. And again, you know, keep those posts coming. The idea was to create a place where we can kind of start sharing some of these similar ideas and seeing what we can all learn from each other. And it's in that spirit that I really like to promote these ideas and have other people share their ideas with me. And, you know, the best part is that, you know, I believe in a spirited debate, if you will, about certain ideas. And there's no harm in sharing all of this information. There's no harm in disagreeing with one another. And you know, it's that idea of the free sharing of information and ideas that's going to allow us to really start to unlock a lot of these secrets. So that's really what I'm all about. It's what this show is about. Hey, Jenny, no, you're not late at all. I'm just getting started. So a couple of announcements here coming up. We're going to be doing a special episode next week. My friend John Edward is going to be joining us here on a special episode of Ghosts of Bacon. And it's really cool. We've been kind of private messaging here, and he has some really cool findings he wants to share with all of us in the group. and it's regarding Bacon ciphers and their influence on Masonic writings and iconology. And so I'm really excited about what he has to share, because John has some really great insights, and is, the leading expert I know on in all of these groups on Freemason symbolism and iconology. So that'll be a lot of fun. I think he and I are going to have a blast visiting next week. Um, Something else, one of our group members, uh, Court Lindahl, my friend, uh, and author, his latest book, I'm about a quarter of the way through it. It's called Timeless Arcadia. Gang, if you get a chance, pick up a copy. It's very, as usual, very impressive research on Court's part, really good information. And I'll be finishing that book this week. And hopefully I can wrangle Court to get him to join us at some point in the future. Be a lot of fun to visit with him as well. We have a lot of very cool correlations going on with our research. So, all right, people. So tonight's episode, like I said, I'm calling it Sorry, It Wasn't deVere. I want to, for those of you who aren't aware, there's always been this sort of debate. There is, back in the early 1900s, someone first promoted the idea that perhaps Edward deVere was actually responsible for writing the works of William Shakespeare. And all of you know that this is not new information, that a lot of people also believe that Sir Francis Bacon wrote the works of Shakespeare, of which I'm in that camp. Now, so they're called the Oxfordians because, as I said, he was the 17th Earl of Oxford. There's also the Prince Tutor theory. Yes, Daniel, I'm going to post that quick. The Baconian versus the Oxfordian camps. And there's also the Prince Tutor theory, which is related to the Oxfordian theory, stating that one of these two individuals was the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth I, and was also responsible for writing the works of Shakespeare. And so a lot of people have kind of been, pitching different ideas and people as being responsible. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take a look at the evidence, going both ways. And it's going to be a very short presentation I threw together this afternoon just to throw this idea out here. It occurred to me when I realized, it's episode 17 already. I thought it'd be a fun little thing to do. So here we go, gang. Sorry, it wasn't deVere, and here's why. So most people cite circumstantial evidence for Edward deVere being the writer of the works of Shakespeare. In one account, he was described in royal court as "thy countenance Shakespeare's." Now, obviously, this is not an unusual turn of phrase, but it appears to be on its surface a very obvious reference to the name William Shakespeare. However, if it's true that many people believe that Edward deVere was actually the secret son of Elizabeth I, suddenly this takes on a different meaning. Suddenly it means that he is actually a secret prince, and this could cause problems in terms of succession to the throne and the rules of succession. So that's an alternative interpretation, but I like this piece of evidence. It's a good piece of circumstantial evidence, but I don't think it's concrete enough. Most people argue that the plays parallel his life, and I don't know why there's a typo there with an apostrophe, but in particular, people talk about Hamlet really mimicking his life. The problem is that from what I've uncovered about Sir Francis Bacon, it directly parallels his life. And so that same argument holds for Sir Francis Bacon. Secondly, most people say that he had the social standing and education, knowledge of the court, and all of those kinds of things that would have allowed him to write all of the works of Shakespeare. That's true. Problem is, it's also true with Francis Bacon, Anthony Bacon, Robert Devereux, Philip Sidney, and a whole host of others. So therefore, we can just kind of toss out that argument because it doesn't make him any more special than any of those other people mentioned. And this one is curious. He stopped publishing poetry when all of a sudden the plays of Shakespeare appeared. And so this is interesting, and it's a very cool sort of coincidence, I guess. The problem is that using the same logic, you can say that Sir Francis Bacon hadn't published anything under his own name until William Shakespeare had died. Same logic. At any rate, also he was very well traveled. He spent a year in Italy, but we also know that Sir Francis Bacon spent 3 years traveling Europe when he was on special envoy to France. But all of the others already mentioned also were well traveled and had spent time in Italy, and many of the Shakespearean plays take place in Italian cities. So once again, all of the evidence people use to argue that deVere could have done it also holds true for all these other people mentioned. There's a last little piece of information which I think is really kind of cool. Um, Shakespeare was greatly influenced by Arthur Golding's translation of Ovid's Metamorphoses, and he wasn't the only one. So was Sir Francis Bacon. There is circumstantial evidence to suggest, is how it's usually said in the literature, that Golding actually spent some time in deVere's home, staying with him. But again, it's just evidence that suggests he might have. It's pretty loose. And all of this is described by the Oxfordians as compelling circumstantial evidence. And so basically, I mean, just looking over this list, gang, I think by far the strongest piece of evidence was being described in royal court as having a countenance that Shakespeare's. So if we look at the Baconian argument, on the other hand, so my big question for the Oxfordians, how many of deVere's contemporaries lamented him as a great secret poet after he died? As far as I know, the answer is none. And yet we know for a fact that this was done with Sir Francis Bacon. We know that at least 32 laments and verses were written in Manus Virulumiani. That was how many Sir Dr. William Raleigh chose to publish in this publication. But he said that he had many others, and some of them were even some of the best ones that he kept out of it and kept for himself. And so every single one of these all refer to Bacon as being one of the greatest muses, being compared to Apollo, and so on, and being a great secret poet, being an expert in secret writing, and so on. And also, if you take a look at this familiar headpiece here of Manus Virulumiani, these are the same iconography that we see on the first folio, on the sonnets, and also Bacon's own writings himself. So we have iconography that is shared across the board. So Manus Virulumiani is what the Baconians refer to as their smoking gun piece of evidence. It was very, very obvious that his contemporaries believed that he was the greatest of writers and poets. They refer to him, repeatedly as the greatest of the poets. And so none of the other candidates for the authorship question even come close to having this. And so that's, like I said, Baconians, we say, okay, that's the smoking gun. But now the other thing that I really want to point out, and I haven't plugged my book on the show in a while, really explicitly, but we do have the explicit message where he says he wrote the works of Shakespeare. He states explicitly that he used the name Shakespeare. And we know that he was surrounded by many good pens, as Bacon put it. And so who were they? Well, they were Ben Jonson, Anthony, and so on. Could deVere have been one of them? Perhaps. Could he have been involved? Perhaps. Have I found any explicit evidence that states that? No. And I've been through these ciphertexts repeatedly. And as I look at them, I have to say that none of that ever comes out. Now, there have been a few recent videos that have hit YouTube One of our group members shared it with me in our group, and it was a really great share. And like I said, and I thanked our member for sharing it. That was pushing the deVere interpretation, where others have now started to take the plaque and look for evidence that deVere was um, the writer of Shakespeare. And even though, I mean, it was a good video, it was fun to watch. There were a lot of leaps of logic there, and what I call fallacies of logic. Fallacy of logic is little shortcuts in thinking that people use, usually to fool themselves or others. And unfortunately, there was a bit of that going on. And I'm not here to poo-poo anyone else's work, but I do want to point out it. If there's a flaw in the research, um, then I have to say, great video, well done. I don't buy it, and here's why. And so um, it also started out with confirmation bias. Okay, they were looking and believing in the evidence pointing to deVere when they started, as opposed to following the clues and see where they led. And so when you are making an assumption about what is true before you even, sorry, my wife's cat's freaking out. So you make an assumption that something's true ahead of time, and then try to work that into the question you're trying to answer. It's called circular logic or circular question. And so there was some of that going on too. At any rate, if we really look at it in a way that is logical, and we weigh the evidence, what they do not have on that side is all the laments of Oxford's contemporaries, and you don't have him leaving an explicit message saying that he used the name Shakespeare. We do have that now with Sir Francis Bacon. So going to open it up, take a look at the little chats here. Yes, Daniel Spino. deVere was an expert jouster as well. It's one of the things he was known for. Absolutely. Yeah, Awoken One. You definitely do smash up the like button. I really appreciate all your support. Now, Golding was his uncle. He was his mother was a Golding as well. And Jason, he spies with his little eye. He's seeing them everywhere. Good find. And so the difference between logical and sound arguments, perhaps. Let me see if I can understand what you mean here, Tom. A sound argument, yes, follows facts and logic. And so what I'm referring to here as logical fallacies they can actually be named, things like hypothesis contrary to fact, hasty generalizations, circular question, and the sort. All of these tend to basically how do I say this? They undermine any credible argument. And so if you can't just follow the clues and follow facts and logic, and you have to say, could it be that that's a lot of us on here. That's our favorite fallacy of logic. It's called hypothesis contrary to fact. Whenever we hear could it be on our favorite show, it could be, might not be, but the problem is that if you're going to use a hypothetical that can't be proven or tested, then that's hypothesis contrary to fact. That means that you're creating a make-believe situation that hasn't happened and then trying to use it as an argument. And that's the kind of faulty thinking I'm talking about. So yeah, great observation, great comment. Yeah, this gets right to the crux of the issue here, gang. Because Shakespeare was promoted as a lone author, it's been a lone author who is suggested as the one real author in Baconian and Oxfordian circles. I agree with you 100%. I think that's a mistake, as do I. They both did it, in my opinion. In fact, several contributed, in my opinion. I don't believe one person was capable or even the superior Bacon. It was Bacon who put it all together, in my opinion. I think that's a great suggestion, Daniel. Now, the only problem is at this point, all I've found is Bacon being the one saying that he used the name. Now, he did say he had many good pens, and that was kind of my suggestion in the presentation. Was deVere one of them? That's a possibility. Again, I'm pretty sure, well, 99% sure, Ben Jonson was definitely one of them, considering that Bacon and Jonson were very close friends, and Jonson spent a great deal of time living in Bacon's home. So was he one of the good pens? Absolutely. Was his stepbrother Anthony? Yes. Could deVere have been? That's a possibility. Yep. Let's see. I believe Shakespeare was a Masonic operation and the secret has been kept. Yeah, and by Masonic, what we're really talking about here is speculative Freemasonry, which really didn't come out in the open until about 100 years later in 1717, I think it was, in the Grand Lodge of London. So maybe when John Edward comes on, he'll be able to speak to that with us and for us for a little bit. That would be very cool. In terms of Bacon's own time, one of the very explicit, clear messages that Bacon encoded in the ciphertext of Shakespeare's plaque, excuse me, was that his famous fraternity, Fama fraternity, we all know which one that one was, evolved into Freemasonry. And so I have a whole section, a whole chapter on Rosicrucianism and the Famas, the Fama Fraternitatis and the Confessio. And also that message about evolving into Freemasonry and looking at a lot of the evidence for that. That's in my next book, The Ghosts of Bacon. So let's see. Tom Burns. Logical argument is, every hat I have seen is black, then all hats are black. From our collective experience, we know that is not true, and therefore not a sound argument. Absolutely, Tom. That's a great way of explaining it, because you're also talking about a black swan. Forgive the pun. If we're talking about the sweet swan of Avon. So yeah, we had only seen white swans, and then no one believed that a black swan could exist, and suddenly they do. That's the term we now use for random events that happen that no one can have foreseen. Again, Daniel, with a sound argument, Bacon didn't lie when he said he was Shakespeare. He just left out some stuff. Yeah, that's a possibility too. Yeah. And the thing is, gang, and I never used to really throw my hat in the ring for, when it came to the authorship question. It wasn't until I did all of this research and discovered the messages encrypted within the plaque, where suddenly I'm like, he says he did it. And so therefore I can check that box and say, okay, Bacon did it. Was he the mastermind of it all? Did he put pen to paper and for every single play and every single word? I don't know. He certainly claims, he states explicitly that he used the name. So I can go with that. If we find more information that says, here are the people here were my good pens, and we see a list of names, I'm all over it, and say, yes. My theory was in line with, until all of this work, I was more in line with what Daniel has been saying. I believed that the plays were written in what's called the round. And the way that works is the writer, the playwright, basically will get their actors together and with other writers and say, okay, so here's the situation. I want you to improvise this, act it out. And then what they do is they let the actors just do their thing, right? Improv. And they write down the good bits. And then what they do is they shape them, and then they put them in iambic pentameter, and then they turn them into the poetry. And in that way, you have an entire group, an acting troupe, creating the play as you go, right? That was always my thought. That was always my theory, because I thought that would be a far easier way for someone to be such a prolific writer in such a short amount of time. And then as I did more research, I discovered that a lot of these plays actually appeared as masks in Gray's Inn at court. And that, and Bacon, of course, was there at the time and was involved in writing them. And so, I mean, even in explicit history, you have references like this that point us in that right direction. Now, probably one of the greatest resources, and there's someone else that I really want to get on the show, Mr. Peter Dawkins. This book, The Shakespeare Enigma, you can see I have a bunch of stuff kind of highlighted. But what an amazing book, because he spells out exactly how it was done, how many of these plays were actually already done in a different form as masks that were done in the legal rooms of Gray's Inn. So very, very cool stuff. And yeah, no one saw that one coming, did they? Thanks for that. Another post by Daniel. Henry Neville is interesting and connects to Bacon and deVere. Yeah, I can't wait for you to post on that, Daniel. There definite connection there too. Yes. Oh, I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something Daniel and I have been talking about for a while. deVere was the money man too. He had the cash to fund everything. He continually had money problems later on because of it. And also Bacon was, the Bacon brothers were continually in debt. And so I think that they were all involved in terms of the money part of the operation. And this was something that Daniel, you and I had kind of chatted privately about, in terms of how they were coining money. And I believe it's where the rumors of alchemy came about, because they were taking base metals and turning them into gold through a counterfeiting operation. I think that they were doing that to devalue the Spanish currency as a form of economic warfare, in my opinion. So very cool. Jenny, is it possible Bacon commissioned his friends to write? Oh, absolutely. When we look at, he referred to them as his good pens, and he and Anthony, early on, after Anthony's return from France, they set up shop in Gray's Inn, and created a scrivener's shop where they were writing plays, they were writing books, they were copying manuscripts, they were translating manuscripts, and they sunk a lot of money into it and lost a lot of money in it. So he definitely had a lot of friends that helped him write. And so did he say, okay, so I'm going to hire you to write this play, and then he kind of worked his magic on it? I don't know. Not really sure how that worked, but he definitely takes credit. Here's a good question that I don't know the answer to. Did deVere have any aliases? Well, considering that, you know what, the way Marlowe fits in, Daniel, is a really cool thing to speculate about for sure. And whether or not he also faked his death, because the story of his death is a little beyond the pale, in my opinion. So did deVere have any aliases? I don't know. I don't know. That would be a very cool thing to start looking into. And to that end, one of the ones that ways we can check that is going to be a show at some point where I talk about the alias formula that the RC used. Daniel, Shakespeare was the alias of, I'm assuming you're saying that's the alias of deVere. Yeah, sorry, Daniel, you're wrong. Good one, though. Good one. Touche. Great stuff, gang. So, like I said, any other questions, comments? Not seeing anything pop up here. yeah, you kind of hit on a part of my theory. I don't like to speculate, but I'll get to it, Daniel. Um, Here's the thing. I'm I know that it's not when it comes to, say, Oak Island theorists and a lot of the stuff that we propose. Um, I know that it's the sexier stories involve Knights Templar, being responsible for Oak Island. They involve the idea of alchemy. They involve the idea of relics from Solomon's Temple being stashed on Oak Island and those kinds of things. Because I mean, those are the narratives that the show likes to promote, or that Prometheus likes to promote. I don't believe any of that. Sorry, and I don't buy into the little woo woo thing of the idea that um, Bacon's immortal and found the Philosopher's Stone and blah blah blah. I think that the Philosopher's Stone is this. It's the noggin, and you take base gray matter, and when it's enlightened, it's turned into gold, and you have to go through the alchemical process of called the great work of educating yourself. And each of the elements and each of the stages of alchemy uh, symbolize that idea of your awakening and your true education. And so in my opinion, that's the great work. And so alchemy was a money laundering operation scheme. Well, what I meant by alchemy was counterfeiting, and that what they would do is, yes, it was because they were tied to the Vatican. We know that now that Sir Francis Bacon was work sailing with Sir Francis Drake, the most successful privateer in English history. Um, and we know that together with and Sir Walter Raleigh, that they were constantly harassing the Spanish and stealing their gold. And so, how hard would it be to take the real gold and then replace it with the counterfeit stuff? Just again, I don't like to speculate, but it's a possibility. Woken one, you're on my brainwave. Hold on. If Francis and his merry men did make fake gold, then it's possible Francis could have swapped real gold and hid it, returning the fake gold back home. That's again another possibility. I think I see that as something that could definitely happen. Jenny, you're always thinking. Yeah, I see what you're saying here. You're thinking commissioning ghostwriters might explain why he said it was him. He may have just meant he was responsible for it. Again, Jenny, that's one of the theories that's out there. Absolutely. And again, the only thing that would make me say that he didn't just hire ghostwriters to do it and then put his name on it and take credit. The people who wrote about him, they all, and gang, if you get a chance, and you can find copies of this online. Manus Verlumiani. There are lots of PDFs of this, the English translation. Look it up online and read some of them. You only have to read the first handful to all of a sudden recognize that the people who knew Francis Bacon, his contemporaries, contemporary men of letters, that they all venerated him as a writer. And so, because of that, I would have to say that he wasn't just hiring writers to do it for him and then, putting his name on it. I would say that he had them help him shape the work, and then he would put his final touches on it if they were that heavily involved in the first place. I do know that he also wrote that in the ciphertext that he wrote books at sea, and so up till now, a lot of people never even knew that he was um, a maritime sailor and that he was a navigator, first mate to Francis Drake, none other. So because of that, he would have had time. That when you're at sea, he has to go outside and make a couple of calculations each day in order to time the meridians, and that was his job. What's he doing the rest of the time? Writing. Yeah, great point. Jake, there's no love lost between the Vatican and the Templars, and by extension, RC as the inheritors of Templar esoterica. Um, yeah, I agree. But when we talk about esoterica, all that really means is hidden knowledge, and so eso means beneath, teric, earth, beneath the surface, So, uh, yeah, there was no love lost between the Vatican and Templars for sure, and I agree. I think that the RC are definitely a continuation of not the Templars per se, but a continuation of that Renaissance, not Renaissance, classical knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome, um, and so that it was a continuation through those Middle Ages that they allowed to carry the information through. So that's definitely true. Yeah, Daniel, that's what I was alluding to. You and I had talked about this in the past. You thought they were conducting metallurgy on Oak Island, and possibly led to the counterfeiting of money. Yeah. And Michael, yeah, this is again a part of the narrative that also follows the pattern of the fool's gold on Oak Island. Could it be that be rather the fire pits and molten slag discovered on the island were part of an elaborate counterfeiting scheme to take down the Spanish Empire? It could very well be. Could very well be, yeah. Fake gold, thus trying to collapse the Spanish county. Now, Jake, to what end? Well, they were at war. It's economic warfare. Um, Again, and I don't like to speculate. This is speculation. I recognize that, but I mean, it makes very logical sense that if they're at war with someone and they wanted to destroy their economy, that would be undermining the faith in their currency and the value of their currency. That's a great way to do it. Yeah, and this was another piece that Daniel had been talking about. Frobisher's fool's gold was a scam on the Queen, in my opinion. Yeah, I think they were scamming a lot of people for sure. Yep. And that is one of the theories out there as well, hidden knowledge that threatens the official dogma of the church. Yeah, that's the common theme, isn't it? It's, when we think of Lincoln and Lee and Bajent, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, another book over there. Um, when you consider that sort of theme, that it obviously led to the movie The Da Vinci Code and so on. Um, these are all ideas that have been around for a very long time, and it's one of the I guess you would say uh, conspiracy theories. I don't know what else to call it. That people usually use in reference to Freemasonry today. That today Freemasonry holds secrets that threatens the dogma of the Catholic Church, and that's why there's animosity there as well. So hopefully we could actually ask our friend John Edward about that when he comes on next week. And boom, there it is, Daniel, full circle. And who was one of Frobisher's second largest funders? Edward deVere. Womp womp. I have to say, we have such a great group here, and the other podcasters, we all say the same thing, but we have a very small group. I have this very tiny little podcast I do a couple times a month. Um, but you guys, it's like the level of um, you know, the level of the conversation, you always keep it top notch, and appreciate you guys very much. Yeah, for sure. If having John Edwards here next week, next Sunday, is special edition. Like I said, I usually only do it every other Sunday, but this week being a little bit off, I wanted to just do this quick little short episode of Ghosts of Bacon, and then we'll be doing that. and I'll see about who else I can start to drag in here as a guest. And Frobisher went and pirated with Drake afterward and made up the Queen's losses. Yeah, great stuff, man. Great stuff. All right, gang. I was going to wrap things up early tonight. Um, Anything else? Any other comments or questions here in the feed? Oh, thanks, Jason. I don't know how much of it was earth shattering or great tonight, but just something I wanted to address and throw something together because it's the 17th episode. I thought that would be fun. Stir things up a little bit uh, when it comes to the conversation here. Yeah, you know what? For sure. Yeah, I would definitely want to get Court in here at some point. Um, I'll reach out to him here a little bit and send him a private message and see if he'd be available to come in and talk about his book. Because listen, gang, he ties in so many family connections when it comes to Arcadia and Nova Scotia and the Stuart line in particular, which I'm obviously very interested in. So, Timeless Arcadia is the name of his book. If you get a chance, pick it up. And Daniel, I think you can copyright that, man. He wants to know, can I copyright back 40? I say go for it. Yeah. Thanks, Penn. Appreciate you coming in all the time. Um, yeah, Daniel, I've been trying to get you on here for a while. So it'd be nice to have you come on. Um, yeah, Tom, and that's the big thing that I really want this show to really be about is see how all of these ideas are interconnected and piece together a narrative. You know what I mean? Each of these and a lot of us come at this research from different angles, and I think we all are pulling on different threads of the same fabric. And if we can kind of put all those threads together and take a step back, we'll actually see the tapestry and the story that it tells. That's what I'm hoping. There's a huge connection there, and it's rather ironic too because this is something that Court mentions in his book, and I'll let him talk about that hopefully if he comes on. And I agree with you that when you consider the Jacobites and the Stuart line, um, most of the people in the later Stuart line were Catholics, and yet they had a connection also with Freemasonry, which was very ironic. And Court makes a great point of pointing that out. No, I'm not his brother. um, that's just it. Yeah. Ongoing themes, same themes, different modes of expression, 100%. All right, gang, I'm going to shut it down. Listen, make sure I'll be posting the event in our Facebook group as well as my page. And so hope to see you all there next week. It's going to be a great show. If none of you have ever listened to John Edward on any of the other podcasts or just seen any of his posts or just chatted with him privately, he is just a storehouse of information, a wealth of information. And so it's going to be such a great honor and great episode to have him pop on here with us and share the things that he knows. And it's going to be fun. So don't miss it. We'll be live next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yes, exactly, Tom. Be careful out there. I don't know about you, but we have some snow up here in the Great White North. And so, yes, definitely, Jeff. Great. I love this. And we'll just drop the mic on that one right there. Thanks, Daniel. All right, gang. Take care. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week. All right. Thanks for popping in and great comments and great conversation as usual. Take care, everyone.